a little bit about today's session and myself. If you've been following me for a while, okay, great that that's audible. So you would know that if you've been following me for a while, you would know that, that I've been trying actively to break the stigma around mental illness. So, yes, today's session is focused on the COVID-19 outbreak. So when the outbreak first happened, I found myself to be really anxious, and luckily I was able to get help from my psychiatrist at that point of time. But I do understand that that's not the case with everyone over here. A lot of us cannot afford help. A lot of us cannot afford to go to a psychiatrist. A lot of us cannot, we are afraid to go to a psychiatrist. There's a lot of embarrassment, ashamed with seeking help, mostly because the society always assumes mental illness as a problem. So when we see something as a problem, we instantly assume that, हमारे साथ कुछ problem है. So a lot of people shy away from going to a therapist. That being said, I got a lot of messages from you people saying that it's been really tough for you guys in this, the outbreak has been really tough on your mental health. And I understand that a lot of us are not able to go to therapists right now. A lot of us are not able to, we don't have the strength to go to a therapist because we are scared. A lot of us cannot afford it because, well, mental health is quite expensive in India. So keeping all of these things in mind, we decided to do this session. I have all the anonymous questions that I received. Apart from that, if you have any question related to mental health, please feel free to, comment over here. Please be, a little considerate. Please be kind to everyone who is joining the session. I request you not to send any hate messages or not to bully anyone because that has happened before. So I just want to assure everyone that this is a safe space. There'll be no judgment over here. And whoever has sent anonymous questions, your identity will be protected. Also, I would like to say that, it might not be possible for us to answer every question in a lot of detail. We'll try to keep it as brief as possible because there are a lot of questions. Without further ado, let me introduce the psychiatrist for today. His name is Dr. Naren Vellanki. He's based in the USA. He's a practicing psychiatrist in Louisville, Kentucky. And he has been working really hard to remove the stigma around mental health. And he's been kind enough to accept our invitation to do this live session today. So I'll just send him an invite to join this live session. If you guys have any question, I request you to send it now in the comment section. That would really help us, I think. I'm not able to find. Okay, this is slightly strange. Okay. Okay, so we are just waiting for Dr. Naren to join us. And once he joins us, we'll start with all the, questions that we have received. So he's here. Hi, Dr. Naren. How are you?
Hey, Ayushee. Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, doctor. So why don't you start off by telling us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a psychiatrist right now. Wasn't always the case. I actually grew up in India when I was
Right.
young. I was actually born there. I was born in Madhya Pradesh.
Mm-hmm.
I lived there for 7 years, and then I moved
Right.
to Tamil Nadu. And then
Okay.
when I was 15, me and my family
Mm-hmm.
actually moved to the US. And
Okay.
so most of my education's been here after that. So I went to high school,
Right.
college, medical school here, and
Right.
I decided to do psychiatry. I felt like it's it's the most important field out there, you know. We know so much about the
Right,
body, but we don't
right.
know a
About the
whole lot
mind.
about the mind. Yeah, to the point where we don't even talk about it. We don't even like talking about
Absolutely.
mental illness, you
Absolutely.
know? Like imagine if we didn't like talking about like heart attacks or
Yeah,
strokes.
yeah,
How strange would that be, you know?
yeah.
And are we really going to find good treatments and cure? Is research
Mm-hmm.
really going to go in that direction if we're like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, heart attacks, let's not even bring that up, you know?
Yeah.
So I felt like there's enough cardiologists out there and enough,
Mm-hmm.
you know, medical folks out there. And I wanted
Right.
to, you know, address mental illness. That's what I'm passionate about, and that's what I
That's
like
lovely. That's lovely.
working on. Yeah, yeah. Thank
Great.
you.
So, yeah. So thank you so much for doing this with us today. We have quite a few people online. So we'll start off with the anonymous questions that we received first.
Sure, go for it.
So yeah. So the first question is, I don't like social media nowadays, but it has become this compulsive need for me to be there. What do I do about it?
Yeah, it's interesting to get that question on social media, isn't it?
Mhm.
Uh, I think social media, just like a lot of other entities out there, it can be really, really good and it can be really, really bad. And
Right.
let's start off with the good parts.
Hmm.
So I'll give you a personal example. When I first moved here, when I was 15, this was around the time when social media didn't quite exist. And then as
Hmm.
it started becoming more and more prominent, more and more people started having it. I
Right.
remember when I was around 22, 23, I was able to finally get in touch with all of my friends back in India.
Right.
You know, they were on WhatsApp, they were on Facebook, and I remember finally being like, man, like I know how you guys all look now, and we can catch up.
Hmm.
And it was this great feeling. And
Right.
to this day, I'm caught up with all of my friends, or at least we try, and you know, we're all on WhatsApp and we FaceTime.
Right.
Uh, and same with social media, you know, like I know when one of my friends had a kid or when someone got married, and even just their daily, you know, things that are happening. I'm able to stay
Right.
in touch with that.
Yes.
So that part of it is really nice, right? We're able to stay in better touch with my friends
Hmm.
and people that we want to stay in touch with. But after a point, you start using it, you start obsessing over it. You start, you know, you post a picture and you're like, how many people liked my picture?
Yes.
And you keep logging back on to see how many people did that. And it can get
There's
pretty compulsive.
compulsive, and I think there's also this competitive feeling which a lot of people face. They look at influencers and they're like, oh my god, I don't have so many likes. Oh my god, that's a really shitty post, it has 2000 likes. How is my post just at 50 likes? So I think social media has also bred this feeling of comparison, and
Mhm.
that's making a lot of people feel hopeless these days. So
Yeah,
how do you suggest
absolutely.
people stop doing it? Like people who compare themselves with others online. Do you have anything that you would want to say to them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to remember that people are posting their best pictures at their best time. And it's easy to be at home on your worst day and looking at that and then thinking,
Right.
hey, why is that not me?
Mm-hmm.
So solutions not always straightforward and simple, and that's typical
Mm-hmm.
of anything related to mental health. But a
Right.
few tips is that you can, you know, all of our phones have certain restrictions that you can put on social media. I know I
Right.
have certain limitations,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, you can put a limit like an hour of social media a day, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I would say is make sure you pay attention to who you're following and
Great.
whose stories you're kind of looking at. Now, if
Right.
it's your ex-boyfriend that you broke up 5 years ago, like, and he's constantly on your news feed, why is that? Why are you thinking
Yeah.
about this person you've moved on from, you know,
Yeah.
so long ago? Focus on the positives. Focus on
Right.
the good people in your life. that you want to stay in touch with.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of influencers, focus on the people you want to hear from. You know, if
Right.
it's somebody who's, you know, traveling a lot and putting up all these really nice pictures and it's making you feel really bad, then maybe don't follow them. You don't have to, you know?
Yeah.
So keeping all these things in mind, those are some solutions I can, you know, come up with.
Superb, superb. I recently unfollowed a lot of people who were making me feel bad about myself. I think it's always good to do that, to cleanse your profile from any sort of negativity. So yes,
Absolutely.
we'll move on to the next question, Doctor. It says, how to get motivation when I can't drag myself out of bed?
Oh, wow, that's a little bit of a serious question.
Yes, it is.
Let's see. So something, you know, that's serious, if it can be a lot of things. So one, you want to make sure it's not anything medical. You
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to get, you know, you could have simple things like anemia. You could
Mm-hmm.
have things like low thyroid. These
Right.
are these are things that affect your body, but it also affects your mind. So
Absolutely.
you feel like you're
Absolutely.
depressed,
Mm-hmm.
except there's a medical solution, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I would recommend is make sure you get checked up by a medical doctor.
Right.
Make sure, you know, there's nothing medical going on. And if
Right.
you have access to a psychiatrist, it's worth seeing a psychiatrist as well. Now, I don't
Right.
know how it is in India, but here, if somebody like that came to me, there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
medical tests that I can do to rule a lot of
Right.
these basic things out. And then if
Right.
everything comes back negative
Mm-hmm.
and we're absolutely sure that there's nothing physical going on, then you start looking
Mm-hmm.
at possible depression. You know, that's what
Okay.
I'm thinking this could be, you know, that's what it sounds like. Lack of
Okay.
motivation, low energy, very, very common symptoms of depression.
So,
So,
when
sorry, go
when
ahead.
someone has this lack of motivation, Doctor, how
hmm
do they find the motivation to go on if they are just if they just can't find it? Or what would you suggest to such patients?
Yeah, it's tricky. You have to find the motivation to do some small things. Now, let's say this isn't any serious depression and something that can be worked on
Right.
at home,
Right.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
At that point, what I would do is you have to find some, there is going to be some level of motivation out there. And with
Right.
that little bit of motivation that you have, it's
Mm-hmm.
like when your battery is running really low. It's running low,
Mm-hmm.
but there's still a little bit left. So what do you do with that?
Right.
So with that, you want to make sure you focus on the right things. And what are they?
Right.
You want to make sure you exercise.
Right.
Now, it may sound ridiculous, like I can't get out of bed and you're telling me to exercise,
Mm-hmm.
but trust me, even going on a walk, even
Mm-hmm.
doing these small things, you you will gain more motivation. You know, the
Right.
solution is, it can also make you feel better. It's like a loop, you know. You go on a walk and then
Right.
now you're maybe able to get out of bed easier. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it keeps working that way. So
Right.
make sure you eat healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you're surrounded by positive people,
That's important.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and make sure
Mm-hmm.
you're addressing the stressors in your life as much as you can. Now, if you got an exam
Right.
coming up in 3 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing that I can tell you that'll prepare you for this exam. So, you
Right.
know, maybe putting your energy towards the actual problem itself
Mm-hmm.
can
Right.
help you feel a little bit better.
Okay. Okay. Great. That makes a lot of sense. So another question is how to deal with stress when it is uncontrollable.
Hmm. That's I wonder what they mean by uncontrollable, because one of the things that I say is, you know, focus on what you can, you know,
Mm-hmm.
solve problems and control things that you can control and let go of the rest.
Right. Right.
Now, there's always going to be things we can't control, and
Mm-hmm.
if it's something you think you can control, if it's still in that realm, I would say work on that.
Right.
Now, if you're in
Right.
an abusive relationship, either work on the relationship itself or leaving the relationship, instead of
Right.
just you.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we think the stressor is something that we can't get rid of, but maybe you can. Maybe the solution is there.
Right.
Um, but otherwise, the same kind of, I pretty much give the same advice to my patients
Mm-hmm.
that works for pretty much everything. So eat
Right.
healthy, exercise,
Right.
be around
Right.
positive people,
Mm-hmm.
sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and try to find something that gets you motivated, some kind of purpose.
Right.
So
Right.
these kind of things pretty much work for everything. And it's amazing how many people
Okay.
don't do those things first.
Yeah. Yeah.
So try to do those things first.
Mm-hmm.
And then my next spiel, if that doesn't work, is, and you're talking to your family members and that doesn't, you're still not feeling better. You here
Right.
at least I recommend going through the system. First, get
Right.
a therapist. And
Mm-hmm.
this is something I really want to emphasize. There's nothing that I can say to large groups of people that
Right.
will necessarily be the solution, because solutions are
Right.
individualized,
Absolutely.
right? Like you
Absolutely.
need to go out
Yeah.
there, you need to talk to your therapist about your
Right.
feelings.
Right.
And then if that's not working, the next step is when I tell people to come to me as a psychiatrist. So
Right.
one of the things I do is prescribe medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing all these things and you're still not getting better, that's when you need to see a psychiatrist. You need to get on
Mm-hmm.
medication if that's what it
Right.
takes.
Right. Okay. So that makes a lot of sense. I think I would also like to add here that, along with talking, it's also very important to listen to what your therapist is saying and to follow those steps, because a lot of us go for sessions, then we come back, we just forget what the therapist told us and asked us to do, and we go back to doing the same things that we were doing. So it's very important to listen to those tips that the therapist is giving, because they usually know what they're talking about. So,
Absolutely,
yes,
absolutely.
uh, that brings me to the next question, which says, I have been going through a rough phase in life for last 4 to 5 months since someone whom I loved with all my heart and soul left me for someone else. This has somewhere broken my confidence and trust. I experience nightmares and have not been able to concentrate on life. Could you please help me suggest some positive way to work this out?
Oh man, this is another tough question.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's tough.
I put this under the realm of heartbreak therapy. That's what I call it. And there's no
Right.
easy solution to this. And this is also cultural. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
in Indian culture, the heartbreak thing is really overemphasized. You know,
Right.
you go through a breakup and that's it. It's pretty much the end of the world. You know, the
Right.
concept of, hey, you went through a breakup and it's okay. Maybe you'll find someone
Mm-hmm.
else.
Right.
You know, I understand that you're sad and this sucks. You're not in a good place, but it's okay. You'll get
Mm-hmm.
past this, and there's other people out there that you'll meet.
Right.
And maybe this wasn't meant to
Mm-hmm.
be, you know?
Right.
And I think that's a concept that's deeply rooted in our culture, that
Right.
once we fall in love uh, in a relationship, that's it. It's over. You know, you're only going to be in love with one person for
Once.
the rest of your life once, and that's it for you. If that doesn't work out, it's over. Your love life is never going to come back.
Yeah.
But that's not true. You can fall in love with multiple people throughout your life, first of all.
Right. Of course.
And you can, there's this whole concept of one person forever thing. It's not always the case, you know. It's not the
It's
normal
actually our
thing.
movies. The movies that we grew up watching, they taught us to place a person on a pedestal, and
Hmm.
things like, हम जीते एक बार है, मरते एक बार है, प्यार भी एक बार होता है. It's somewhere
Yeah,
deeply ingrained in our heads. So
yeah.
it's just very tough for people to, let go of those memories and to let go of that person. So
Hmm.
um, what would you suggest to someone going through a heartbreak? What are the things that they can do to move on? Are there any solutions in psychiatry which can perfect help them?
Uh, well, the first thing I'll say is it's normal to be sad and upset. So there's a period of
Right,
time. I would say the
right,
first month, it's
mm-hmm,
okay to be a complete mess,
right,
especially if it's unexpected, especially if you thought this
right,
person was love of your life and the circumstance was
mm-hmm,
really bad. It's okay
right,
for a month to be completely devastated. And then
mm-hmm,
it's also okay for another 2 month period to be sad about it, but you're able to kind of move on a little bit slowly, you know?
right,
So there's a 3 month period where it's completely normal and okay to be sad. And you can listen to
right,
breakup songs, you can talk to your friends about how this person's horrible if that makes you feel better. You can talk to your therapist. You can get all these
right,
dark feelings out. Like it's okay to be in the dark
right,
cloud. Like I hate when
yeah,
people in these kind of situations, someone's like, "Hey, it's okay. You'll be fine." Like no one wants to hear that in that 3 month period. But after
right,
that, you need to start focusing on yourself. You need to
right.
start worrying
Prioritize
about you.
yourself. Yeah,
Right, right. Why do you need another person? Like
yeah,
what's missing in your life that you need somebody else? Maybe focus on
right,
that.
right,
So I would say
absolutely,
put a
absolutely.
lot of energy, thoughts, everything onto yourself, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes,
yeah, that's the best way to go about that,
great,
focusing on yourself.
great.
Now, I don't
So
have a medicine for it.
that's helpful. Yeah,
Yeah, I
of
don't
course,
have
there's
any
no
like
medicine for heartbreak.
I would trust me, I would give there's a lot of things out there. I wish I could give out medications like that, but there isn't.
Yeah, if only if that was possible. So we'll move on to the next question. It says,
Mhm.
I'm so freaking scared of this virus. Even if someone is having a cough at home, I freak out. My parents are having autoimmune meds, so it makes me more worried. Because of this, I'm unable to sleep, neither rest at peace. Please help me in some way.
So COVID-19, it's touched all
Yes,
of our lives. It's affected everything. We're all locked up at home all over the world. The
right.
economies have slowed down. So it's definitely a real threat. That's the first thing to remember
Mm-hmm.
about this. This
Right.
isn't something where you can go home, meditate, do some yoga,
Mm-hmm.
think of positive thoughts, and it's going to work out. This is an actual threat out there.
Right.
So first thing I would say is get all the facts about COVID-19. You know,
Right.
don't let it be this mysterious thing that you don't know anything about. Like, get all the facts down. What's the
Mm-hmm.
infection rate?
Right.
And it seems like it infects it's a little bit more contagious than the flu.
Right.
Mortality rates, where are they at? And
Mm-hmm.
what's each country and where you live? What are the laws, legal thing going on? Get all of the
Right.
facts right and focus on the right news sources. Now, if there's
Mm-hmm.
some news source that's going to sensationalize it and you're feeling really anxious about everything, don't watch that news source. You know,
Right.
pick these news sources very, very carefully and get your
Mm-hmm.
facts down. And once you have the
Right.
facts down, control what you can control. So put in all your energy and effort into doing what you're supposed to do, which right now
Right.
it is staying at home,
Mm-hmm.
not going out, unless you really need to, right? And
Right.
if you're bringing items from the outside, make sure you sanitize it, clean it, and wear a mask, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So do everything you can possibly do, and after that, it's really not up to you. You know, once you're
Right.
doing
Right.
everything you're doing, there's really nothing more that you can do. So at that
Right. So
point,
you're controlling everything that's possible. So that
exactly,
removes the unneeded fear that we have within ourselves of catching this virus.
exactly, exactly. So, maybe write down what are the real
Mm-hmm.
fears and what are some things you're blowing out of proportion in your head.
Right. That's
Separate them
extremely
and
helpful. Yeah.
yeah, and focus on the real fears and get
Right.
plenty of rest. You know, if you don't sleep and you don't get rest, you're gonna weaken your immune
Right.
system,
Right.
and that's not gonna help with this virus. So
Absolutely.
focus on all these things.
That's helpful. I hope that answered this person's question. Okay, we have one question in the comment section. It says how to deal with recurring episodes of mood swings regarding bipolar disorder.
So there's a couple mental illnesses out there. One is bipolar
Mm-hmm.
disorder, the other one's schizophrenia, which
Right.
it's almost impossible to control them without medications.
Right.
And the crazy thing is there are medications out there that are very good and that
Mm-hmm.
work very well. Now, those
Right.
two illnesses are ones where I'm not gonna, I mean, you should still see a therapist and it will and can help, but you
Mm-hmm.
have to be on the right medication.
Mm-hmm.
There's a medications called mood stabilizers, and they do exactly what they sound like, where
Okay.
you it stabilizes your mood,
Right.
and there's basically there's a chemical imbalance
Right.
that you're not going to be able to fix without getting on medication. And there's
Right.
a certain
Right.
percentage of the population that's going to have bipolar disorder, and those people
Right.
need to be on medicine. And I worry
Right.
about this in India. Like there's a billion people, and there's millions of people with bipolar disorder out there, and that are not on medication. You
Right.
know, so that usually my answer is not medication, but when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to bipolar disorder, it is.
Okay.
You need to be on the right medication, and you need to find the right psychiatrist, and
Right.
get on the right medicine.
Right. Okay, so we have a couple of questions from the audience. First is from, okay, wow, okay, this is kind of tough. Okay, the first question is when someone is nervous outside his home all the time, is it just because he's an introvert or is it some kind of mental illness?
Nervous outside the home. Like, is it like
Mm-hmm.
agoraphobia, like your fear of going outside?
I
Mm,
don't. Please save this life after. Okay. So to the person asking this question, the doctor just asked something that is it the fear of being outside or is it just nervousness that you're facing once you're outside your home? So till the person answers that, maybe we can take the next question. It says how to
sure.
face parent abuse.
Parental abuse? Yeah.
Yes, that's the question.
Uh, well, okay. I would say when you're younger, there's a, there's not like a whole lot you can do as a kid, You need help.
Right.
You need a system in place.
Right.
And this is more of a systemic issue where here we
Right.
have child protective services
Mm-hmm.
where any kind of even a hint of suspected parental abuse, we're legally required to let them know.
Right.
And they start an investigation and they
Mm-hmm.
take the kids out of their home if need be. And this is where
Mm-hmm.
India needs to make sure the government has the system in place because kids are helpless, you know? But if you're 18 and you're
Mm-hmm.
past a certain age, I say move out. Do what you have to do to move out of your parents' place. And,
Right.
you may struggle for some time, but you just have to find a way to make your own life at that point. Now, understand the resources aren't always limited in India. We're
Right.
all people are dependent on their parents financially,
Yeah, moving out
but
is not always an option for a lot of
yeah,
people here because, yeah. So what do they
but
do in such circumstances if
um,
they
I,
can't
I
move
would,
out?
I mean, I would strongly urge to move. to move out. And the pain outside this world is better. You learn a lot. What are you going to learn being at home with your abusive parents who you've been living with for for the rest of your life, for most of your life, Do everything you
Right.
can to move out. That's the first thing I would say, you know.
Okay.
Uh, you got to do what you got to do. Like the world outside teaches you a lot, you know. But
Right.
inside the home, I'm not really sure. Like I don't really know what to do with these old adults that are just going to be abusive.
Mm-hmm.
I would just separate yourself from them as much as you possibly can, because
Right.
even if you're an adult now and you're able to argue back, and
Mm-hmm.
things like that, there's so much psychological damage that was probably done growing up
Absolutely.
with these parents. So you just have to
Yeah.
find a way to physically
Right.
separate from them one way or another.
Right. Right.
There's no, I'm not a big believer in staying in these kind of situations, whether it's domestic abuse, parental
Right.
abuse. Get out.
Right. Okay. So I don't think we've received a reply from the person who asked about being nervous outside the home. If we can probably clarify it a bit more, we'll be able to answer that. The next
No, that's
question is
okay.
related to,
I
yeah,
can just
please. I'm so
say, like,
sorry. Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no, that's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
it could either be your fear of just being outside, just
Right.
the world is a dangerous place, which,
Mm-hmm.
you know, past this COVID crisis, I feel like a lot of us couldn't relate to that,
Right.
because why would you be afraid to go outside?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that bad. But now, while the time, during the time of COVID, it makes sense that pretty much touching something and then touching your face, you could get this deadly virus. So you can see how
Right. Right.
going outside can be scary. So it could
Mm-hmm.
be something like that, or it could be something like uh, fear of like social phobia, the fear of other people.
Right. Social anxiety
Yep, yep,
is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Social anxiety. So there's different ways to address any kind of phobia. You
Mm-hmm.
can either do a graded method where you slowly
Yeah.
increase your exposure. It's called exposure therapy.
Right. Right.
And the other method is called flooding, where you
Right.
just go out, you just face your fears. You're afraid of spiders, you just take a spider, put it on your face. Uh, you just do something very drastic, and then you can see that
Yeah.
you survived. And some
Right.
people it works, for some people it doesn't. But for other people, you slowly, you look at like a picture of a spider. You look at
Right.
like a toy spider, and you slowly progress that way. So same thing
Right.
with this and any kind of phobia. You just got to slowly face it.
Right. Right. So, as someone who suffers from social anxiety, I think that's a really helpful advice. I usually
Hmm.
try to find a safe person in a social gathering with whom I can talk. And once I get comfortable with one person, I move on to talk with uh, different people. But yeah, I think this advice is great. And I'm going to personally follow it for sure. We'll move on to the next question. It was about, okay, just one second. It says, I often get bad thoughts that something might happen when things are really calm and everything is okay. What do I do?
This sounds like classic anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
where
Yeah.
this fear of unknown, makes you super anxious. Your heart starts beating fast. You're not able to breathe.
Right. Right.
Firstly, let me say this, like, it's hard to talk about anxiety without talking about the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So
Right.
the sympathetic nervous system gets activated when there's a stress, like if, let's say, a bear is chasing you. You're sitting in your
Right.
home, a bear breaks into your house and is about to attack you. You know that feeling you get of increased
I
heart rate,
do.
sweating? I mean, hopefully no one actually had this experience, but that feeling is completely normal, right? But then when we imagine a bear and then we start having those same feelings, that's what anxiety is.
Right.
So you have to separate, like I was saying earlier, you have to separate what fear you're thinking about is rational and possible, and what's completely
Mm-hmm.
improbable, and
Right.
separate them and rate what the likelihood is. Like if you're
Right.
waking up at night that an asteroid's going to destroy Earth and the
Mm-hmm.
human species, just write down what the probability of that. It's not zero,
Mm-hmm.
but what is that? And how low is that? And is it something you want to
Right.
sit there and worry about? And if you worry about it,
Right.
is it going to help? So if
Right.
once you start breaking down your fears and putting percentages to them,
Mm-hmm.
you'll realize there's like one or two things you're actually worried about. You know, you're
Right.
worried about your exam, and then you're worried about your parents' health. Okay,
Right.
you can put most of your energy into those two things rather than an
Right.
asteroid destroying
Right.
Earth, right?
Absolutely.
So channel your
Absolutely.
energies in the right directions.
Right. I think that's really helpful. That's the same thing my psychiatrist told me when I have major anxiety. So I think I'm going to do this as well, maintain a journal between rational thoughts and improbable thoughts. So that's really
Absolutely.
helpful, doctor. I'll move on to the
Mhm.
next question. It says, okay, it's here. It says, how to help myself when I know I am facing mental illness and can't meet a therapist, how to make myself positive. So this is where your helpline comes in. We'll answer
Mhm.
this question towards the end. We have some free helpline numbers for you people, for everyone who can't afford a therapist right now. But we have a few more questions, so we'll take that right now. This is about insomnia, which is a major problem, I think, these days. How to improve sleeping habits. I'm an insomniac. Thoughts don't let me sleep. Random thoughts.
Yeah, this is so I have a handout for
Mm-hmm.
positive sleep hygiene. And I would say if you have
Right.
insomnia, you have to follow it obsessively,
Mm-hmm.
religiously.
Right.
And I have a 4-month-old, and we have this perfect sleep uh,
Mm-hmm.
hygiene thing that we do right before she's about to fall asleep.
Right.
So
Right.
we give her a bath, and then we
Right.
put lotion and oil on, like calm her down, and then we read a book,
Right. Right.
and and it takes a half hour. And by the end of this,
Mm-hmm.
she knows that it's time for her to sleep. Like her brain, everything pushes her to falling asleep.
Right.
The
Right.
exact same thing needs to be applied to us as adults.
Okay.
The thing is, we
Okay.
don't. We don't do it.
Yeah,
We
we
just
don't.
run around. Even 2 minutes before we fall asleep, we're doing something super anxiety
Mm-hmm.
provoking. And even when we're in bed, we have our phone like this with the light on our face and looking at social media. Get rid of all of
Right.
that. And make sure uh, 2 hours before you fall asleep, don't eat anything, especially not large meals.
Right.
Um, don't, this, if you have really bad insomnia, you have to follow this strictly. Like, don't watch TV
Mm-hmm.
or even look at your phone 2 hours before you fall asleep.
Right.
Uh, and have a sleep routine before you fall asleep. So have these
Right.
specific things that you do that
Right.
can only be individualized for you, whatever that may be,
Right.
If you're spiritual, like say a little prayer, things like that. Do
Mm-hmm.
do all these things, and then
Right.
you do that consistently enough, your body will know it's time to fall asleep
Right.
and it will stay asleep.
Right. I think that's extremely helpful. Getting into routine is
Hmm.
really essential when one suffers from sleep disorders. Okay. So the next question is, if a person has a superlative complex, how to make him understand without hurting his feelings? Okay.
Superlative complex. I'm not sure if I know what that means.
Neither
Like
do
they're
I. I
like
think
egotistical.
I think that's what they mean, that someone who considers themselves to be better than others.
Hmm.
Adding to my question, what is to be done in the case where the person is an emotional one too? Letting them know of their complex would make them more unproductive in any pursuit, which is common. This question is with
Hmm.
respect to their coworker, I think.
Hmm.
So,
This sounds like, if I were to speculate, it sounds like someone with at least some level of narcissistic personality disorder.
mm-hmm,
And people with narcissistic personality, they have a tough time taking criticism because
Mm-hmm.
anytime you say anything bad, it takes over who they are. It hurts them
Right.
entirely. So if you say
Right.
something like, hey, you're bad at this one thing, most people take
Mm-hmm.
it as, hey, I'm bad at this one thing. And
Right.
people with narcissistic personality take it as, are you saying I'm a bad person and that I'm bad at
Right.
everything? Not only am I not bad at this, I'm not bad at anything. So they overcompensate.
Right.
So you have to do everything you can to validate them
Mm-hmm.
and say that, hey, you're doing a good job. Thank you for all these positive things that you've done. And here's something that is small that we could work on.
Right.
So you bring it up in that way. You have to kind of go
Right.
around it a little bit. And
Right.
a lot of positive validation helps, you know.
Right.
And sometimes you feel bad doing it because you're like, this person already thinks that they're better than everyone, and now I'm telling them that they're better and they're good at all these things. But you
Yeah.
have to do it in a certain way where you validate
Right.
certain
Right.
things
Of
about
course.
them, but you also invalidate other things that you need to work
Right.
on. And I would pick one or two things. Don't go off on this long list. Here's 10 things you should get better at. Pick just two things,
Yeah.
maybe
Baby
even one.
steps. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what I would suggest doing.
Okay. That's. I hope that answers their question, and that's really helpful. Another question is, what do you suggest are some ways to cure laziness?
That's so funny. Uh, my wife's probably watching this and just laughing because that's something I've struggled for so long. Oh
Okay.
man. Uh, I would say just for me, what helped me was having a goal
Mm-hmm.
and also not having options really other than, succeeding and making something. Uh,
Right.
but I would say if you're in a situation where put yourself in a situation where you don't have the option but to work. So
Right.
whatever that may be, like you can sign up for a class, you can sign up for specific things out there, you know. Like for me,
Mm-hmm.
I started medical school and it's like, okay, you have to study now, you know.
Right.
So I think with lazy people, you need outside things pushing you and outside
Right.
commitments. And once you
Right.
start doing these things from external commitments, over time you start enjoying it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, wow, actually working hard and then accomplishing this makes me feel really good. So why don't
Right.
I keep doing this? And your brain starts changing and you'll
Mm-hmm.
catch yourself doing a lot of different things without external validation, just for yourself.
Right. Right.
So, go sign up for that class, that may be a computer engineering class or
Mm-hmm.
like a salsa dancing class or,
Right.
you know, do sign up for something.
Right. Okay. That's helpful. Okay. Next question is, I care too much about what other people think of me. I don't even talk until I have something certain to say. What do I do?
The second part is probably not a bad thing. I think we have too many people out there that just talk for no
Hmm.
reason, you know. You should talk with a purpose. But the first part, uh, I think it's important to remember that most people don't care about what you have to say or what you do in life, you know.
Right. Right.
It sounds bad, but it's actually a good thing if you're suffering from what you're talking about. Most people
Right.
they just worry about themselves, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
have their own stressors, their own worries, their own thoughts. They're just going about their day. They're not sitting here
Right.
thinking as much about you as much as
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking about how much they're thinking about you.
Right.
So try to remember that. Try to remember and focus on other people and how much they're focused on other things. And don't focus on
Absolutely.
how they're worried about you, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's another thing where you take one step forward and you'll take another step
Right.
forward and another step, and next thing you know, you're going to be running. So start that first conversation, and then have
Right.
another conversation, and slowly you'll get better. It's like practice, you know, just like anything. Even talking to
Right.
people takes practice.
Oh, it does. It definitely does. So, I think the live goes off at 5:30 or something of that sort. So it's a 1 hour thing. Just one last question to you, Doctor. How
Mhm.
do you deal with rejection? Like, how to not get disheartened after rejection? How to not give up after you faced a really massive rejection in your life?
That's a good question. I not only, here's my thoughts on rejection. I think people
Mm-hmm.
should embrace rejection and want rejection.
Right.
Because if you are never getting rejected, that means you're not trying and doing things that are
Right.
above, that could take you above and beyond, you know?
Right.
So you're only trying something that you have a very high chance of succeeding. And where do you think your life's going
Right.
to take you if you do that? Just
Right.
some middle class job, you know, like it doesn't take you as far as you could go. So I would say first dream big. Dream an
Absolutely.
impossible dream,
Yeah.
and then embrace rejection constantly. Like seek it.
Absolutely.
And then you get used to it. And you know the more rejection you get, that hey, that's good. It means I'm working towards something that
Trying.
other people aren't. Yeah, yeah. So I'm
Absolutely.
glad you got
That's
rejected,
lovely.
whoever that person is. It's okay. Keep getting rejected. It's completely fine. Just keep going on.
Thank you. That's a lovely advice. Okay, I think we have another question. Regarding the sexuality question, I think we'll have a separate session for it. We can't cover it in this session. Last question is extremely in love with myself. Is it a good thing or bad in long term? Kindly answer, sir.
I think it's for the most part good thing, and I'm glad
Mm-hmm.
you have the confidence to admit this. I think
Yeah,
it's really a beautiful thing. I think not enough people love themselves. You know, we're
yeah,
so
they
focused
don't.
on loving other people, and I think it's a
Mm-hmm.
human need. Like it's just how we are. We're built to like look around, who can we love? But it's very, very important to love yourself. Now, when
Right.
it becomes detrimental is when it's harming other people in one
Mm-hmm.
way or another, where you feel like you're so
Right.
important that you're hurting other people. That's when you
Right.
know you're going into some dark place. And when you're
Right.
not able to take criticism,
Mm-hmm.
criticism, just like rejection, is something that's very, very important. You should
Absolutely.
seek it, you should take it. But if you're like,
Mm-hmm.
if someone's saying something, hey, maybe you should work on this, and you're like, oh, well, I won't, I'm better,
Mm-hmm. Right.
then it's getting to the point where it's bad and you're developing
Yeah.
more of a narcissistic personality.
Right. Okay, that's extremely helpful. Thank you so much, Dr. Naren, for doing this session with us. Why don't you tell the viewers and audience who joined us about the free helplines?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's something we do in America. Like I like ending by saying, hey, look, we ended the conversation here, but I want you to know that there's places you can go out and reach out so you can get some help.
Right.
And in India, it was a little bit complicated for me because there were a lot of
Mm-hmm.
numbers in a lot of different places.
Yeah.
So what I did was in my profile, I compiled all these different numbers that I could come up with based on
Mm-hmm.
a website that I found reliable, and I put it in my page. So feel free to
Right.
check it out. It's got a lot of different helplines, and it's got a lot of websites that you can
Mm-hmm.
or emails that you can
Right.
email. And if you have
Right.
other ones locally that you know of, actually, comment down there. It may help somebody else. So feel free
Yeah.
to visit my profile, check out these helplines.
Did it? And
Sorry, I I got a
yeah,
phone
yeah,
call.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. We missed the last section.
Oh,
So,
sorry.
be, yeah.
What part did we miss?
I think what doctor was saying that you can go to his profile, and if you have any other free helplines which can help people in distress, please leave your comments on his profile. Also, make sure to follow him. I'll be tagging him in all the posts. So please go and follow his Instagram profile. You'll get a lot of helpful advice from his profile. Please do check out the helpline that he's telling. It's his recent post on his Instagram page. It will help a lot of you. Thank you so much for compiling that list, Dr. Naren.
Yeah, absolutely.
And any last words to our viewers, sir?
No, I just want to actually thank Ayushee for doing this. This is really great that you're passionate about this, that you wanted me on here and do this talk. And it was really, really, kind of you to do this and help all these people,
It's the least I can do.
So follow her as well. I've been following her and she's got a lot of good things to say.
Okay.
And hopefully hopefully we'll do this again. I figured we may get more questions, and this isn't a one and done thing.
Yeah.
We'll do this again.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was a lovely session, Dr. Naren. Thank you so much for joining us today. With that, we'll end today's session, I think. And we hope you guys took away something from this session. Please do let us know how you found this session, ways in which we can improve this our session. If you found any particular thing to be helpful, please do leave your comments. Please do write to us and please do reach out. So yes, until then, stay safe, take care of yourself, and remember, it's okay to ask for help sometimes.
Absolutely. You guys all take care.
Yes. Bye, guys.